All right, we are live again. I am here with Jackson Miller. Welcome back to my channel. I am Amanda. We are talking about week 3 of semifinals, which should be kicking off actually tonight, I believe, with the Far East Throwdown. Usually it's tomorrow morning, but because we have one that's so far away, I think for most of us it's starting tonight, 7 o'clock here Pacific time and 10 o'clock Eastern time. But first, Jackson, what did you think of week 2 of semifinals?
I mean, I thought it was another super exciting week. I love that these events are coming down to 1-2 points between finalists. It's not always the case, but right now we're looking at events like watching Tyler Christoffel in that last little bit. I mean, heartbreaking to watch, but those are kind of storylines that are super fun and are making it exciting. So now we've seen back-to-back weeks where you go into that last event and you're counting points and you're watching those fringe athletes. That's just super exciting, and you don't get that a lot. So I thought the second week was even outperformed the first week, in my opinion. And certainly I think this week is going to be probably the most exciting of all the weeks of the semifinals.
I like that prediction. I also agree that last week was super exciting. On the women's side, we also had, I think, 4th, 5th, and 6th were all just 1 point spread away from each other. So that's crazy close. That's a couple seconds in one event or one rep. So it was a pretty exciting week. I figured we might start with the Far East Throwdown, and then we'll go to Granite Games, which is a pretty exciting field. But if you want to pull that up so you can see what it looks like, I am going to share my screen for everyone at home so they can see what's going on there. Let's see. All right. So I have the men first. You want to do the men on the Far East side?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. So I think this is one of those regions where it's a little bit more difficult. We don't know as much about the athletes, kind of like the African region last weekend. But there is one really big athlete in here. That's Roman Khrennikov. He's been talked about for years. I'm actually a little surprised that he's going to South Korea for this event because I know how much trouble he had getting to the U.S. He was here. He was working with Mayhem for a little bit, and now it looks like he's going, or he is, in South Korea for this event. So I was a little surprised to see that he was leaving again when it took him so long to get here, but I think he can easily win this event. And then if I had to pick another one, so there's 2 people going from this event. Alexander Ilin would probably be the other one I'd look at. Any thoughts from you?
I'm going to be honest. Roman Khrennikov is the only name that I am even familiar with on this list. I'd love to be very insightful here, but I have followed his progress, and to me, it sounds unfortunate that I don't think that the drama around his ability to move from country to country is over. I think we're going to certainly see that kind of story continue, but fingers crossed. I want to see him at the game so badly, just because, you know, there is so much hype there, and he's kind of the mystery, right? Is he? Some people pan him to be the top guy in some situations, but just hasn't had the opportunity to really shine. And I want to see it play out. As for the rest of the names, your guess is probably better than mine. I'm really not familiar with this semifinal. I feel bad, and I'll probably watch very little of it, just with the Granite Games going on at the same time.
Yeah, the Granite Games will be a really good one to watch. But if you look here, I pulled up Alexander Ilin's profile. He does have 2 games appearances. So he's the 2021 games, the 2019 games. So there's definitely a shot that this is our other athlete out of this region. Heading over to the women, again, I think the same thing stands. We don't know a ton of these athletes. I know Choi, this one here, I'm opening up her profile for people to see, from Korea, was at the games last year. And, you know, she had some big moments there with some big lifts. So I would imagine she is one of the 2 athletes that we're going to see come out of this region.
Yeah, what was her finish at the games last year?
I will, let's see. Her finish was 34th.
Okay. So obviously a phenomenal athlete, and somebody's got to take those spots and get a shot at the games. But yeah, not anything, certainly nothing. Once again, it kind of comes down to not saying that these athletes aren't unbelievable fit people, but are perhaps not as pushed by the media. Some of our kind of more Western athletes are. So I'm just not familiar with them, but it's going to be exciting. And we can always take those two workouts, the legless rope climb and the barbell complex, and compare and actually see from semifinal to semifinal where the Far East stacks up. But we'll see. Someone's coming, right? Someone's going to come out of here and go to the games, and it can't just be Roman Khrennikov. So we'll find out.
That's one of the things that's super interesting about having these two workouts that were mandated by CrossFit, I think, is we can really compare across regions now in a more fair way. I think this is one of the regions that people are upset gets two spots sometimes compared to a region like Oceania, which has athletes that can all six of them, the 3 men and the 3 women, could possibly finish in the top 10 at the games. And then we have other regions where, like we looked, people finish a little bit lower, but Roman Khrennikov is an exception. He will likely, if he makes it, finish in the top 10. But it's complicated deciding which of these regions get people to go to the games and how many.
Yeah, certainly if I'm Roman Khrennikov, if I can make it back into the U.S., I would rather go out here and compete here than have to come show up at the Granite Games this weekend and compete against those guys.
Yeah, or the last chance qualifier, because last chance qualifier is a really challenging way to qualify because all of those athletes are just right there, almost able to make it to the games level. They're the 6th, 7th, and 8th place in each of the regions or semifinals.
Yeah, I would argue that everybody at that last chance qualifier is a games level athlete. Just for as tight as the point spread is, a lot of it comes down to mistakes made in events in their semifinals or perhaps programming that did not favor them. But all of those athletes, I would argue, are as good as the games athletes.
It's probably the hardest place to qualify.
Oh, I would agree.
This is a look at just the teams. I'm just putting them up here so people can see them. And if someone's watching this who happens to know these teams or is excited about these teams, they're all really fit athletes. I mean, making it to this point is an accomplishment in itself. So I'm sure we'll see one of those teams at the games and see how they do. Now, if we go over Granite Games, we start with the men there. I feel like this is a pretty good field.
This is certainly the field that I'm the most excited about. I think if you were going to try to do a pick 'em and pick all 5 people who are going to make it out of the Granite Games, I would be shocked if you could get them all 5 correct, because there's just so many guys who are really, really talented athletes here. But at the same time, it's not quite like some of the other semifinals that have like that one outlier. Like, you know that one person is going, you know that this person's going to take the top spot. We knew that Saxon was going to make it. We picked Noah. Obviously, I thought Noah was going to do a little bit better, but we know Noah's going to make it to the games. This doesn't have that as much, where all of a sudden you've got all these guys who are top contenders, and it's just going to be kind of a dogfight all the way through, which makes it a really exciting field.
Yeah, it makes for a really exciting weekend. So who do you think is going to make it out of this field?
Okay, so let me go down my list and take a look at some of these names. I'm a huge Fikowski fan. Obviously, I'm a tall guy. I'm a big guy trying to make my way through CrossFit. So I've been rooting for Fikowski since the day I walked into the box. So I think he'll make it. I think he's a perennial games athlete who always knows how to show up. However, he does typically do better as we move along. His games are usually the best of his performances. So he'll have to fight. But I definitely think he'll be one of those guys. Sam Kwant has certainly shown up some years and been unbelievable. And then some years, dealing with, I believe he had some injuries or things along those lines have kind of kept him out.
I think it might be an autoimmune disease that he's been dealing with. So
that's right. So we'll see how he shows up. But certainly if he's in full force, he's going to be one of my top picks. Colten Mertens. top athlete. He throws some weight around for a guy his size that is mind blowing to me. So I don't know what his body. Let's see if they got a listed body weight on Colten Mertens.
190 pounds.
Wow, that's actually, I thought he was a little smaller than that. He's pretty big.
4 inches.
Yeah, he's a short guy, I know that, but man, does he throw weight. It is amazing how that guy moves a barbell. So I'm excited to see him. Phil Toon wasn't a name that I was really familiar with until this year. I saw when I was doing the Wadapalooza qualifier, he was top of the list. Then on the CrossFit Open, he was top of the list. So he's been putting up some really good events. Travis Mayer, Chandler Smith. I mean, there's just so many guys in here. Matt DeLugos is coming out of Underdog. So we've got a lot of really, really interesting storylines to follow here on the men's side.
Yeah, I mean, that's already 7 names, and 7 are not going to the games.
7 are not going, and I'm not the encyclopedia of CrossFit knowledge. So there are definitely some guys in here who are just as hungry and who are top level athletes who are going to be competing for those spots.
Yeah, I'd throw Tim Paulson into the mix too. I do agree that Brent Fikowski he's an athlete at this point who's likely better than the programming. Like, it's not going to matter as much what is programmed. That might change where he finishes, but I think he'll qualify regardless of what we see. So I think he's just one of those perennial games athletes, and he'll make it in. I don't know if he'll win this semifinal. I mean, he might, but yeah, I think all the athletes you mentioned are good names to mention. Chandler Smith, Samuel Kwant, Phil Toon, Colten Mertens, and Travis Mayer. Travis Mayer, I feel like, is one of those athletes that's always forgotten about. But he's been to the games quite a bit and is a really fit dude. He works out with Noah Olson over at a training think tank.
Yeah, I believe he owns that gym, if I'm correct.
I'm not sure. I know
I think he is the gym owner there. It's interesting because you've got different types of athletes. You've got these athletes that are super, super well-rounded, guys like Saxon Panchek, who are really good across the board. And then you've got guys who we don't really see specialists anymore in CrossFit, but definitely have programming that favors them. And I feel like guys like Travis Mayer and then Fikowski kind of fall in that category where they've got events that they can just absolutely smash. And then they do just pretty well in everything else. And when you've got a bunch of those guys stacked against each other, it makes for a volatile leaderboard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those athletes that we're talking about, Brent and Travis, they just know how to mitigate the damage of the things they're not as good at.
Yes. Yeah, it is a different strategy. Instead of trying to maximize every single event, it's trying to hit the home runs and then damage control on other events.
Yeah. There's one more athlete I'll give a little shout out to. That's Zach Button. He went to my gym in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I actually know him, and he did go to the games one year, qualified through the Open. So it must be cool to see someone that I know and used to work out with at Granite Games this year.
Yeah, good luck, Zach.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see. We'll move over to the women's fields here. Let's see what this looks like. Well, I think the biggest name is Mal O'Brien.
Certainly, we would argue that the storyline is a year of Mal O'Brien training with Matt Frazier. We knew she was going to smash the Open. I mean, did she smash the Open beyond expectation? But everyone kind of expected that. Now we get to see her at an in-person competition. I feel fairly confident that she's going to dominate. I think she's top notch.
I think she will do very well. She's, like you said, done well all year. The Open, I just can't even imagine her struggling or being in one of those last chance qualifier positions. I think she'll be well within the top 5, possibly winning it. I'm not sure if we've actually seen her. Well, she won the Open, I think, really win an in-person competition. Because I know she competed as a teen, but I don't believe she ever won as a team. And last year she probably would have, but she chose to go as an individual. So it would be exciting to see her on the top of the podium.
It certainly would. What was she, second at the Granite Games last year?
we could probably figure that out. Let's see. At semifinals, she was second.
Second. Okay.
I think Ariel Lowen came out of that semifinal and surprised everyone and finished first. And I believe this year she's going to the last chance qualifier.
Okay. So Amanda Barnhart versus the up and coming Mal O'Brien. What do you think of that matchup?
I will probably give it to. I think Mal just has a lot of momentum right now. And I think she has a lot of confidence in herself. And working with Matt has helped with that and belief that she can win the games. So I would probably go with Mal, although I would imagine she's also not peaking for this. And I imagine Amanda Barnhart isn't either, because she knows that she wants to potentially push Tia at the games. And she has Matt in her corner. And I'm sure Matt's like, we're going to peak for the games, not peak for Granite Games where you should qualify. So I think I would go with Mal, but that will be an interesting matchup because I think they have some similar strengths, one of them being strength. So we'll see. I think they'll do well in similar events.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm like I said, I think at least the perception is that Mal is the top runner here. Mm-hmm. We just haven't really been able to watch the progress of Amanda Barnhart as much. Certainly, we know when we think of Amanda Barnhart, we think of just her barbell movements, especially in a barbell complex where she's going to be able to probably power clean all three of those.
Yes.
In a barbell complex, that's going to be massively beneficial, even over a 1-rep max, just because she's not going to fatigue her legs out. She'll be able to save a little bit more through the squats and through the jerk, where I'm going to guess that Mal's probably going to squat clean all three of those, or maybe the second two. Mm-hmm. So that one event, something interesting, but Mal's just so strong across the board. I think she's the front runner in a lot of people's eyes right now, as far as not only just here at the semifinal, but as the person who's going to step up and try to compete with Tia.
Yes.
But other than her, there's a lot of other people here to watch out for.
There is, yeah. And I think that we've talked about that strength event a little bit and how it does tend to be an outlier. And it is interesting that we're talking about the potentially the two people winning this event, the whole Granite Games event, also winning that specific event in that barbell complex. So it's interesting how different this field is already looking compared to some of the other semifinals where we had Haley Adams win out of Syndicate Crown, finishing like 23rd or 24th in that complex.
Mm-hmm. Definitely some strong athletes in this field.
Yeah, it is a stronger field.
Yeah, really strong field here for sure. There's going to be a lot of heavy barbells. Have we looked to see when the barbell lift drops in on this event?
I'm pretty positive it's not the first. It's not the first event like it has been at some of the Knoxville events.
Okay, so it looks like they haven't even announced this. At least it's not on the games page as to the order of their events.
I believe Morning Chalk Up may have posted their events, and if they are in order, which I imagine that would be why they put them in the order they did, it looks like it's the second event on the first day.
Okay, on the first day. Okay, so we're going to see some big numbers for sure.
So the first event looks like it's 9:15:21, barbell thrusters 1:15:80, and a handstand walk.
Yeah, it's that heavy Fran, inverted Fran.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool event. I think those girls are going to absolutely smash that event. Once again, going back to a lot of overhead stability and into handstand walking. We'll see if that taxes out. It'll be interesting to see if we'll see a lot more fails on the heavy jerks in that barbell complex following that event. But regardless, first day, there's going to be a lot of heavy barbells thrown around.
Yeah, and that's the event people have been preparing for the longest. We all knew this one's coming. It was announced first, and this is the third week. So I'm sure people have been preparing, knowing that it could come anywhere in the weekend, and just kind of preparing their body for that stimulus. Also in this field, there's some other athletes I think we need to mention. One of them being Saghafi. I feel like she just missed out on a game spot last year. I believe she was at the MAC last year, which is where Tia was, and Tia took a spot, even though she was from Oceania, and I believe Fee finished 6th. So I think that she can do well here. She's out of CrossFit Mentality, which I believe is Scott Panchek's gym, and she works with him. So I think that's definitely someone to look for as well in this field.
Yeah, once again, an athlete that I've heard her name for a while now. I haven't seen her compete yet, but certainly a big name in the media. Interested to see how Sydney Wells does. Obviously, Brooke Wells' sister coming in. She's been obviously pushed by the media, but newer to CrossFit and had kind of a breakout year last year. In basically her first year, she decided to show up and do it. And we've also got Alex Willis, who I believe is out of Underdog, and then Dani Speegle is another big name in the sport. So some big names in the field here. It's once again kind of a situation where we've got two big outlying names, and then from there it could be, you could put a number of these girls in here to make those spots, which is going to make it a much more exciting event to watch.
Yeah, I think Dani Speegle, who has sort of become a huge name in CrossFit, might struggle with this field. There's a lot of people here. I definitely wouldn't put her name in like permanent marker on that list of 5. I think that she could be in a last chance qualifier position. Maybe she'll surprise me, but I think there's definitely a good chance of that. Emily Rolfe is also a really strong athlete, so I think she could do well here.
Yeah, I don't want to miss her. I mean, she's a 2 times games athlete. She's been top 20 both times. So did not mean to skip her name. She's definitely a top contender here as well.
Yeah, I think she has a real chance of being in that top 5. Also, I'll mention Kaela Stephano. She was a teen athlete, and she competed against Haley Adams. When Haley Adams was in the teen division, she actually beat Haley Adams their first year in the 16 to 17-year-old division. So I don't know how serious she is about CrossFit right now and how she's pursuing it, but she was a great athlete as a teen, could definitely do something this year. And we mentioned Sydney Wells. I think that's an interesting one because I do think that she's gotten more attention because she is Brooke's sister. She is a phenomenal athlete. She was a collegiate track and field athlete. So she's a great athlete. I just wonder if she's getting more attention. Well, I'm sure she is getting more attention because she is Brooke's sister and not because she's really going to contend for one of those top 5 spots.
Potentially. I mean, I'm looking at her results. She was 14th at the West Coast Classic last year.
Yeah.
That's pretty dang good for a first year in CrossFit. So I would argue that she does get a lot of extra attention. But I don't think that you should ignore her. I think she might show up and do something pretty impressive. We'll see. Maybe I don't know if she's the next Brooke Wells, but I think she'll do pretty well. I'm excited to watch her compete.
And she is also working out at Proven with Shane Orr and Tia. I mean, those are some good people to have in your corner. And I would imagine Shane will probably be, or her coach specifically, will be at the Granite Games watching her and helping her out. So she has some good people around her.
Yeah, I mean, just Brooke, Tia, and Saxon, to name 3 of their athletes, all had pretty decent showings at their semifinals, respectively. So they seem to be showing up ready to compete.
Yeah, I mean, Brooke was a little bit close to that cut line there, but I think we have to all remember that she's coming off of a massive injury, and she had surgery less than 9 months ago. And just to qualify after that, I'm sure her doctors weren't telling her that she'd be back at the games this year. So I think it's really impressive how they've managed her injury and got her to this point so quickly.
No, definitely.
I was just taking a look at some of the workouts. It looks like that legless rope climb workout might be the last workout at Granite Games this year, which will be interesting, especially on the women's side. And like we already talked about, the overhead fatigue. I just wonder if that's all the handstand walking and all of that is going to impact women's ability to pull on that rope climb.
So I was going to bring this up as an observation I've had about the legless rope climb. I don't know why they haven't done anything or why they didn't do this from the start. There seems to be a lot of subjectivity from the judges as far as what contact on that rope is, on the cross beam is.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with it is if the athlete thinks they make contact and come down and get a failed rep, the fatigue that you get from doing a failed rep on a rope climb is so significant. It almost, for a lot of these athletes, it ends the workout for them. They cannot recover from a failed rep, and you're gonna see a 15 place drop, and that for a tight field like this is going to be the end of a games appearance right there. So I don't know why. My thought was, why didn't they put a sensor up top for them to touch so that they can get a feedback on whether they made contact or not? Because it just seems to me, I don't want to see somebody lose their spot based on basically a miscommunication or a difference in opinions on what solid contact on the crossbeam looks like. So I'm hoping going into that last event, we don't see that storyline that somebody ends up failing a rep and can't get the second one, and they start failing out, and there goes their dreams of going to the CrossFit Games because the judge felt like the contact wasn't significant enough.
Yeah, or even something more obvious, like a target that's a different color that they can hit that just might be a little bit easier to see for the judges. A bright color, something that your hand would contrast against better than like a black beam. I mean, I'm not entirely sure it's last. I was looking at Morning Chalk Up posted yesterday, all the workouts, and they have that one last in their list of workouts. They don't have it written as like workout 6, but they have it last in the order, so I'm imagining that's what it is. But I did see Jamie Lee is commenting. I think we both know him. And he did say legless last, question mark, exclamation point. So that would be interesting if that is what they decide to do. It is a fast workout, and they do like to put fast workouts last. So that could be part of the reasoning.
Sorry, go ahead.
The excitement of having a fast workout last, that seems to be the trend at this level of competition, whether that be semifinals or back when we had regionals. So it could be that reason that they, went with that one as last. But who knows?
Yeah, I think the idea of having them racing, running up a rope and running and back and forth and trying to, beat each other there is going to be really exciting because people are going to push the pace as hard as they can, knowing that they're fighting for that spot. But I just wish they automated more events in CrossFit. We start to see timers around the ankle in some events where you're getting when you cross. But man, why can't we have sensors up on that crossbeam that tell you exactly when you touch?
I think you froze up on my end. Hopefully we get you back. But I will keep going while I wait for that. So I also saw that Jamie commented that I wish they would have been consistent with when the barbell complex was from week to week. And I have heard some other people comment about that as well, wanting to see that consistency. I don't know why they're not doing that. I imagine it wouldn't be that difficult to tell each semifinal, like, hey, you have to work it first.
Or even.
Oh, you're back? You froze for a second. Can you hear me, Jackson? This is live for all of you. This is what it's like. But I was talking about the barbell complex and just how Jamie was asking to have consistency with that complex from week to week, and how that could be beneficial, at least from comparing things. Because when you see someone do a barbell complex after several events, it's just not going to be the same as doing a barbell complex fresh. So it would be interesting to see if they consider doing that in the future, if CrossFit considers doing a more consistent workout at a consistent time. So when they have these 3 workouts now, instead of just doing them, or 2 workouts, just doing them anytime during the weekend, maybe having them mandate when those workouts are done. I'm going to see if I can pop Jackson back into the stream here. Hey, Jackson, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry about that.
No, it's totally fine. All right. So I was just talking about that barbell complex. Would you want to see that more consistent week to week, like doing it at the same time at each event, first event, second event? Jamie was mentioning that he would like to see more consistency.
Yeah, you're trying to find that fine line, right? You want it to be interesting. You want it to be different. But certainly being able to compare athletes, I don't think it's fair if one's on the last day and one's on the first day. 6 events, and some of these events are grueling. We're going to see a ton of fatigue for some of these athletes, and you're going to notice it big time when you start to see those numbers and how they fluctuate across the field. Certainly some of these guys are going to see 345, 335 numbers, and then you see at the end of the weekend and they may be throwing 315, 310. So that's a pretty substantial difference in how those numbers play out. So I would agree in something like a barbell lift, it would be nice to have it a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, this one is still on the first day, I believe. It's not the first event, but I think we're going to see big numbers just out of this field, both from the women and the men. I think we have some strong people throughout Granite Games.
Yeah, we talked about it, we touched on it last week, is part of the reason why we maintain the consistency of having a barbell lift is because it is really exciting to see people throw big weight around. So I want to see the biggest numbers that these athletes are capable of. I want to see us push the limits of strength in the sport of CrossFit. And part of that is allowing them to kind of be strength athletes and not just CrossFit athletes, and allow them to rest and recover and start to see some higher percentages.
Yeah, for sure. Jamie also mentioned that he'd like to see the team snatch event as the first test for everyone to make it a more similar environment.
Yeah, consistency would be nice for sure. There's definitely
the snatch event.
What was that?
The snatch event. I feel like it looked like an exciting event. The way they've been doing it, having the teams come out and have multiple platforms moving at once. I think it's been structured well and been an interesting event to watch, whether or not you're excited about the team competition.
Yeah, I mean, it is exciting. To me, the one thing that I've noticed is there is still a difference between our team athletes and our individual athletes, as far as what they're capable of throwing around. So we start to see the men's bar ending, I think, at 285 is the last bar. And it's a big hyped up event when a team athlete catches 285, where it's a pretty normal occurrence. We're seeing snatch ladders at the end of the weekend ending, people are throwing over 300 pounds at the games.
Yeah.
So there's still definitely a discrepancy, but definitely getting closer and closer. And the snatch in general is just a super fun and exciting lift to watch.
I love watching the snatch. It's my favorite lift. I just pulled up the teams. I think the big thing in this field right now is I'm seeing 2 Invictus teams. And I'm not sure if I think it's been years since we haven't had an Invictus teams at the games. One of them, I think they've had multiple before. So I would keep my eye on CrossFit Invictus. There's also CrossFit Invictus Unconquerable. I think both those teams have a good shot of being in the top 5 here.
Yeah, I mean, Invictus has been trying to do what Mayhem did, as being a really top-level team producer with multiple teams going. They haven't been able to have the success that Mayhem has, and their teams are also coming from all across the country. There's multiple Invictus gyms. So I don't know if both of these are coming out of their gym in San Diego, but it's always fun to watch them compete.
Yeah, and I think I would bet if you want to look at some teams, what teams you think you might make it out of here, I would imagine both of those teams are 2 of the teams you should look for. I believe CrossFit OBA should do well as well and expect to qualify a team. Some other names that I believe I've seen before, Rhapsody CrossFit, Ocean State CrossFit, and 8th Day CrossFit all look very familiar to me.
Yeah, I mean, once again, your guess on these teams is probably better than mine. I'm not super familiar with the team side of the competition, unless your name is Mayhem or Renkiewicz. I'll certainly be watching it and try to educate myself on some of these teams, but I'm a little bit more honed in on the performances of the individuals.
And I think that's where a lot of people are when it comes to CrossFit. I think the individuals get a lot more attention and people follow them a lot more closely. Mayhem is so big, likely because Rich Froning is a big name there, and he was an individual for years prior to moving to the team side. I would say that Invictus has probably been really good on the team side longer than Mayhem has. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Invictus is a OG team.
Yeah.
Is an OG team. They've been at it for a long time. They just haven't been able to pull the massive top level athletes away from the individual side into the team side, which is kind of fun and exciting because they're able to produce teams without having to kind of, recruit and build these prospective teams. But in the end of the day, if you want to compete with the top teams, you basically to have 4 individual games athletes just making the decision to go compete on team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think we have Mayhem still just dominating. And I think this year they legitimately have a chance of getting 2 teams on the podium. I mean, they could get 3. They qualified 3 teams, so it is in the realm of possibilities. And they just do so well there. It's hard to.
Yeah, you kind of start to feel like a broken record, right? You start talking about team, and it's almost impossible not to just start talking about Mayhem.
Jamie just commented, teams are more of a breeding ground for the individuals.
Interesting. I would think that is true. I would agree with that to some extent. I think we're starting to see the vice versa, the flip side of that, where now it's almost turning into a place for individual athletes to kind of throttle down from their career. So we're seeing on both ends, young athletes who are just getting in or finding the opportunity to make it further in the sport. They go team and then using that as a way to develop. But then also on the other side, athletes who can no longer sustain being full-time CrossFit athletes are able to do team and kind of back down a little bit.
Yeah, and to what Jamie was saying, I do believe Pat Vellner was a team athlete the first time he went to the games. So there are a couple athletes out there who went from this team environment, got some games level experience there, and then took that and translated it to the individual experience and success there.
Rumor has it, Alessandro Pacelli was a games athlete.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So the team, and that's also a good way to look at the teams. Like you should be looking to see if there are some up and coming athletes who may be interesting in the future, who may be top level individuals in the future that are coming out of this team side. It's something to keep an eye on when we're watching these teams. But I think we have an exciting weekend. I think the Granite Games is going to be a really good field and exciting. Keep an eye on that Far East Throwdown as well, because there could be some big names there. Roman Khrennikov, like we've mentioned, is someone who could possibly contend for a podium spot. And he's competing out of there. So it should be interesting to see what he looks like at any level of competition. Just getting to see him work out live in person, I think that should be interesting. And I think he'll probably win that.
I think you're spot on. I think we were wrong last week about Jason Smith.
We were wrong.
We were wrong last week about Jason Smith. So that proves how uneducated we are with our foreign CrossFitters. However, I think we're going to be right with Khrennikov.
I think so as well. Yeah. Well, it'll be an exciting week. I'm excited to watch. I know Jackson is excited to watch as well. And I appreciate all of you for hanging out with us this morning. Leave a comment. I'll respond to all of those. If you have any guesses, I'd be interested to hear what they are. And enjoy watching CrossFit this weekend. Thanks for joining me, Jackson.
Yeah, thanks for having me.